Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can all of you hear me?
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, Ustad.
Yes, sir. All right. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa. Wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa amma ba'd. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنهم إن يظهروا عليكم يرجموكم أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم ولن تفلحوا إذا أبدا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. So we're doing the story of Ashab Kahf in Surah Kahf, and just to briefly recap what happened last time, we did these ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that we raised them up after putting them to sleep for several years. And then when they were raised up, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they asked one another this question, that how long were we sleeping? How long were we in this stage where we were enveloped with this sleep? Was it a day or a part of day, just portion of a day? And while they're debating, then one of them, they say that let's first, send one of us with a silver coin to the city. And they told him that فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى طَعَامًا, that you should go to the city and try to find not just any edible food or old food, but the most pure, the most pristine, the most wholesome, the most spiritually pure food that you can find for us. فَيَأْتِكُمْ بِرِزْقٍ مِّنْ, and that you should bring some of that sustenance, that you should bring some of that nourishment for us. And the second thing they tell that person, وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ, that you must act in a polite manner, gentle manner, and وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا, you should not let anyone know about you. So, three things are mentioned that bring azka ta'aman, most pristine, wholesome, spiritually pure food, behave in the most best of ways, yani behave with the best of adab and akhlaq, and also don't attract any attention to yourself, keep a low profile. And they're saying this because they were scared that after all of these years, they didn't know how much time had passed by, but they were worried about the possibility of persecution, oppression. So we can just only imagine how tyrannical that government, that society would have been, that they fled, that they were so worried about this, that they have to go back, they have to send this one person secretly to go and get them food. And they're giving this advice to just keep a low profile when you're in the market. And this can also be understood that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised them up, obviously people get very hungry if you're sleeping for a very long time. But despite their hunger, they're still worried about the food. They only wanted to eat that which is azka. And إنهم إن يظهروا عليكم يرجموكم أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم. That indeed, if they become aware of your presence. So this dialogue continues that if they become aware, the people in the city, the market, if they become aware about your presence, then yarjumukum, they will stone you to death. This word rajam means to stone someone. Like when you go for Hajj, right? We stone shaitan. Or this is a way to give punishment. This is one way to punish the shayateen. We stone them when we do Rami. Similarly, if a married person commits adultery, and there are several conditions for that, then also the same condition of the same punishment of Rajab is applicable. So if they become aware of you, they will stone you. And this is one of the punishments. And the word Rajam is mentioned several times in the Quran, in the meaning of murder, in the meaning of killing. It also means this particular way of killing where you stone the other person to death. Or secondly, أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم, or they will try to return you back to their millet. This word millet, it's important that it's not that they will turn you back on your religion. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us here in this ayah, that when a man or a woman, they try to leave the false society, the false parties, the false company, the fakery around us, and they try to live a life that is purely for the sake of Allah, that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if he goes back to get some small encouragement, to get some food, he's re-entering that environment to get some food. Even if he's trying to get some food, there is a danger. And the danger is that people would just be waiting for him. So now you're back, and they're going to try to either stone him, and this is not just physically, this also means stone him verbally. They might condemn him, stone him with words. They may throw harsh words on him, that what's wrong with you? Why are you doing all of this? Some harsh words, strong words, stone him. Or they're going to try their best to convert him back to their millet, the millet that they were on. They're going to try to bring him back to his old ways. They'll try to apply peer pressure on him. They'll try to apply any kind of pressure to bring him back on all of those unlawful, impermissible ways from which he fled. أَوْ يُعِيدُكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ. So millat is not just leaving your religion, it's about going back into that old manner of living. And that's what really the society is all about, that they would be okay with you worshipping in the privacy of your home, in your innermost chamber. But they want really that outside in public, you need to follow their rules, their culture, their ways of living, their values. You cannot have your own values. They want you to give up your values and come back to their own values. وَلَن تُفْلِحُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا. And then the ayat says that if a person does that, if they were really to go back to their millet, to their old ways, give in to that peer pressure, or whatever type of pressure, Allah Ta'ala says, وَلَن تُفْلِحُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا, that you will never ever be able to gain falah. You will never ever be able to attain falah. So remember that there's a difference between millat and deen. Millat is always attributed to a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's Sahib Shariat, like Fattabi'u Millata Ibrahim. Whereas deen can be attributed to any person, like Deenu Zaidin. You can say Zaid, Dini, my deen, Zaid's deen. Millat is linked with with the Nabi who's Sahib Shariat. So this person, if he goes back to the millat, then Allah Ta'ala says that they will never be able to, such a person will never be able to attain falah. So this is all that they told that one man who was being told to go back to the market to get some food. You will not be able to attain falah. Falah. Falah is another word that frequently comes in the Quran. Normally we translate this as success, that you will never be able to gain success. But there are two types of success. One is dunyavi and the other is in the hereafter. The worldly success, worldly falah, is that a person gets blessings, ni'mah, by which they can live a happy life. They can live a good life. So for example, they have good health, they have barakah in their wealth, they have a reputation in the society. This is one type of falah, worldly falah. And second is falah in the akhirah, which basically means four things: that a life of eternity after which there is no death, a baqa after which there is no fana, and a life of wealth after which there is no poverty, and such honor and izzat after which there is no embarrassment and humiliation, and such knowledge, a life of knowledge after which there is no ignorance and heedlessness. This is the falah of akhirah. And truly, if you look, the falah of the akhirah is what the Prophet ﷺ used to ask for in his dua as well. Allahumma la aisha illa aishul akhirah. That the real falah is the falah of akhirah. That Allah, there is the real aish, the real prosperity and happiness is not the happiness here in the dunya, but illa aishul akhirah. It's the happiness of akhirah. It's the success, the felicity in akhirah. So such a person will not be able to attain falah if he goes back and follows the millat of a fake millat. You can have your deen, you can be called a Muslim, but if you're following someone else's millat, their way, their style, their values, their customs, their drinking and speaking and talking and eating and dressing and all of that, then it's, we're following someone else's millat. Islam is a distinctive deen, which has its own millat, its own way of doing everything. And we were doing with the other class this book on Shama'il-e-Tirmidhi, which mentions everything about the Prophet ﷺ in terms of his physical conduct, the way he would eat and drink and sleep, and his libas. There is a particular distinctiveness in the deen of Islam. And we're supposed to maintain that distinctiveness. We're not supposed to be have so much resemblance that we lose our own distinctiveness. There are, I mentioned this before as well, that there is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that man tashabbaha bi qawmin fahuwa minhum, that whoever acquires a resemblance with a particular community then will be termed as being from that community. And what that means is that there is a particular ghaira, a distinctiveness, a uniqueness that Islam, the deen of Islam, gives us, that we're supposed to have with our life. in the way we carry ourselves, the way we speak, the way we dress. If there are 1,000 women, a Muslim woman should be able to stand out in that gathering. She's a Muslimah. 1,000 men, one Muslim man should be able to stand out that he's a Muslim. There is a ghairat in our deen. The Prophet ﷺ said that out of all of humanity, I have the greatest ghaira. Wallahu aghyaru minni. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more ghairat than even than me as well. So this ayat is teaching us that if we give up on this millat Ibrahimi, this millat of the Prophet ﷺ, then a person will never be able to attain falah. So what that teaches us is that if we really want to attain falah, we need to hold on to, remain steadfast and follow the millat of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, which is actually the millat of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, Hanif. This word falah also comes other places in the Quran, that who are the people who attain falah. So one would be this category, those who follow the millat of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, the millat of the Prophet sallallahu, the ways and the mannerism. Similarly, this falah is also for the muttaqeen. Wattaqullah la'allakum tuflihun. That acquire taqwa and in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, so that you can attain taqwa, so that you can attain falah. Acquire taqwa, attain taqwa, so that you can attain falah. And similarly, those who follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, they also, ulaika humul muflihun, they are the ones who attain falah. Those who have ikhlas, sincerity, Allah mentions that they also are the people of falah. Those who do ihsan upon others, they also, wa ulaika humul muflihun, are the ones who will attain falah. Those who do tazkiyah of their heart, who purify their heart of spiritual dirt and filth and sins, Allah says they also will attain falah. Qad aflaha man zakkaha. Qad aflaha man tazakka. That falah is for that person who does tazkiyah. And lastly, those who make tawbah. Tawbah is also an amal through which a person can attain falah. Tubu ilallah, tubu ilallahi jami'an ayyuhal mu'minun, la'allakum tuflihun. That all of you mu'minun make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala collectively so that you can attain falah. So these are the ones who attain falah in the Quran. And then the Quran also mentions people who do not attain falah. Magicians will not be able to attain falah. Wala yuflihu sahirun. The person who does zulm will not be able to attain falah. Innahu la yuflihu dhalimun. You see, la yuflihu. The dhalimun will not be able to attain falah. Those who speak lie or attribute lie to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they also will not be able to attain falah. The disbeliever will not be able to attain falah. So we have both sets of people in the Quran, those who attain falah and those who will not be able to attain falah. However, now what happens is, to continue with the story, that when this young man, when he went back to the city to get this food, and some of the scholars, they say his name was Tamlika, Wallahu alam. when this young man, he went and he followed all the instructions. He saw the food that was wholesome, spiritually pure. He bought that food, kept a low profile. He was very kind, polite, gentle. But at the time when it came the time to pay the money, he took out his silver coin and he gave it to the person because they had actually been there for a very, very long time. So that coin was extremely old coin. It's like you go to a general store and you show a coin that is from the 1800s. Imagine, right? 1800 coin, you give it to the cashier. So when he brought that old coin, the merchant from whom he was trying to get that food was taken aback. And then the story spread in the city that such a young man came with such and such a coin at this, right? And at this point, you see that this is the barakat of the youth, that they made dua previously to Allah Ta'ala, that Allah sends some bisultanim bayyin upon them. And at that time, they were in this cave, and now the whole society had changed. It was a society of believers. The ruler was also a believer. The society was that of mu'mineen. The ruler was a mu'min. So when the story spread, the king even received news about this stranger, and then he went with a group of mu'mineen. They went to the cave to meet these people, and they were very, very pleased upon meeting them. Very pleased upon meeting them. And then Allah Ta'ala says here, Allah Ta'ala mentions that وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ, that thus in this manner we made them known. كَذَلِكَ أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ لِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. That in this manner we made them know, we disclosed them to the people of the city, so that the people of the city could realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise is true. وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا, and so that the people realize that there is no doubt about the hour, the as-sa'a, the day of judgment. That same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who can now send somebody back to you after so many centuries, that same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can revive all of humanity, even if centuries or tens of thousands of centuries have passed over there. إِذْ يَتَنَازَعُونَ بَيْنَهُمْ أَمْرَهُمْ, when they were disputing among themselves in their matter. Now, first thing that happens is that the mu'mineen then had a dispute. These people in the city, the mu'mineen had a dispute. They had a disagreement as to how best they should honor this discovery of the people of Kahf. How should we honor this discovery that we found the people of the Kahf? So فَقَالُوا بُنُوا عَلَيْهِمْ بُنْيَانًا. So one group said that we should build a structure over them. We should build a structure, some kind of building over them. This is like, to build a structure over them is like Maqam Ibrahim. This is like a feature of the Quran, that certain places of the pious people are taken as musalla. Therefore, when you go to Medina Munawwara, you see all of these masajid there close to Medina Munawwara, like Masjid Bilal, Masjid Abu Bakr, Masjid Umar, Masjid Usman. These actually were the homes of the Sahaba, the places where they would worship. Masjid Bilal, Masjid Umar. So in the early Muslim community, they decided to make their homes masajid. So they're two very separate things. One is that you build a masjid where they used to reside, and the second is that you build a mazar over their grave. That's not what this ayat means, right? So this ayat is not saying that you build a structure over them, like make some type of mazar over them. No, right? It's don't build a mazar over their grave, but rather it's more like you build a structure like a masjid, like we see in the case of the Sahaba Ikram, right? Like Masjid Bilal and Masjid Umar, the places where they used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you take them as a pious place and you take that place as a place of your own worship as well. People can come and worship. رَبُّهُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِهِمْ. Indeed, their Rabb knows best about those young men. قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا عَلَى أَمْرِهِمْ لَنَتَّخِذَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. You see the word comes here. That indeed the Rabb knows best about those young men, and those who are dominant in the decision, who prevailed in that matter. And surely, sir, undoubtedly, we will definitely build a masjid over their resting place. We will build a masjid over the resting place. So this is something which is mentioned in the Tafsir, that when the ruler of the time saw Ashab Kahf, he also summoned like a tablet. Like that's one of the tafsir for this word ar-Raqim, that apparently when these young men disappeared, that corrupt government had written down their names on a tablet somewhere, that these are the outlaws, renegades, rebels of the society, like a most wanted list, that if they're ever found, we'll give them the death penalty. And now the current ruler, the pious ruler, he summoned and asked for that tablet to be sent, and he saw that indeed it was the same people in the cave, or the same ones on that tablet. And that was another way how uh, it was established that these people were suspended by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that stage, where in a very special way that they were kept alive in that cave without time passing over them. So the Mufassirun, they mentioned that the masjid was built at the mouth of that cave where they were residing. The masjid was not built over their graves where they were buried, but at the site of the cave, which was their musalla in a way, a site where they would retreat to pray and turn to Allah Ta'ala and make dua. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so if you look at this ayat, the way this ayat begins, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made these people known to the society. They hid themselves, they were pious young men. They hid themselves, kept a low profile. They wanted to keep a low profile. They made all the arrangements to keep a low profile. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them famous. And one of the things that the Mufassirun, they point out from this part is if a person worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the privacy of their homes, when no one sees them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the effect of their ibadah, Allah will make that known to people around them as well. Goodness, piety is something which cannot be hidden. Allah makes it known. Allah gives izzat, honor, rank to a person because of their piety. Once the Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahaba, Manil mu'min, that who is a mu'min, who is a believer? And they said, Allahu wa rasuluhu a'lam, Allah and His Messenger knows best. So then the Prophet ﷺ said that a mu'min is that person who doesn't die until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings about so many people who say so many good things about that person. that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings about so many people around him, and all of them, they are praising that person. They're saying things about that person which that person likes. Now, what happens after this? Now comes the discussion of how many people were there. And this is also an interesting ayat. The debate, this was the second debate. سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم. That some people made the statement, they said that there were three people in the cave and the fourth was their dog. وَيَقُولُونَ خَمْسَةٌ سَادِسُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ. Others, they said that there were five of them and the sixth was the dog. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about all of these statements, رَجْمًا بِالْغَيْبِ, that they're merely guessing, they're estimating, they're guessing things that are unseen, that are unknown to them. Literally, the word rajm means that they're just shooting arrows. They're throwing stones in the dark. This is a figure of speech in the Arabic language. Rajm, throwing stone. They're throwing stones in the dark, which means that they're taking a wild guess. Rajman bil ghaib. And this is a lesson that for someone who wishes to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the mashayikh, they say they should not engage in this practice of throwing stones in the dark. One should speak good, else remain silent. So this was the first, these were two positions, right? There were three, fourth was the dog, there were five, and sixth was the dog. And Allah Ta'ala says that both of these positions, Rajman bil ghaib, they're merely guessing. And then we have the wow. وَيَقُولُونَ سَبْعَةٌ وَيَقُولُونَ سَبْعَةٌ وَثَامِنُهُمْ كَلْبُهُم. And some say that there were seven people, and the eighth of them was their dog. This last call, this is of Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala an. And right after this, Allah Ta'ala says, وَقُرْ رَبِّي أَعْلَمُ بِإِدَّتِهِمْ. That, O my beloved Messenger Sallallahu, say to the people that my Rabb is the most knowledgeable about what their actual number was. My Rabb knows what their actual number was. So in this ayat karima, Allah Ta'ala is addressing the Prophet Sallallahu. And there is a lesson here that if there is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't explicitly stated, then there is no need to get into so much debate and disagreement and discussion about it. Make it into a talking point that how many years were they sleeping, for example, or what was the actual number of Ashab Kahf, 3, 5, 7, what was the name of the dog, etc. These are unnecessary details. The real message and the lesson is that which we learned already from the story. And that is what a person should reflect upon, that nasihat, that counsel, that guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give through this story. That's what our efforts should be directed towards. Not on unnecessary details. And this is a point that is relevant for us as well. In our modern times, there are a lot of secular, modern, and liberal Muslims who sometimes engage in unnecessary details about Islam. Some people end up rejecting hadiths And they're just looking at small, minute details which are really unnecessary as far as understanding the Quran is concerned or taking guidance from the Quran is concerned. Unnecessary details, unnecessary questions, unnecessary discussions. People sometimes write whole books on things which are unnecessary. Entire PhDs are done on things which are unnecessary. So, for example, in Surah Baqarah, we have the Ayatul Kursi. Now, instead of trying to understand what the Ayatul Kursi means and what lessons we're supposed to take from that ayah, some people they go and they start debating and confusing other people really that what is the kursi of Allah? What does the chair of Allah Ta'ala mean? And how is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sitting upon that chair? Kursi means throne, the throne of Allah. So abstract discussions about what is the throne of Allah and how does Allah sit on that throne and how big is the throne of Allah, etc., etc. Or when there is the mention of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, now to leave the whole story and all the lessons in that story and ask that, okay, what was the name of the father of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam? At that time, what was the name of the Pharaoh who lived? What was his name? Who was he? Where was he? And then this whole other set of questions that this Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how long did he live? Where did he live? Where is he buried? Where was he born? So likewise, these unnecessary questions and issues where a person they confuse themselves and sometimes end up confusing other people as well. This is a futile attempt. To all of these questions, right? This ayat is teaching us a lesson that Qur Rabbi a'lamu bi iddatihim. That if they try to take you away from the necessary to the unnecessary, you shouldn't do that. You should ignore the unnecessary, the futile. In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that from the excellence of a person's iman is that they leave those things which don't concern them. Whether they were 4, 3, 4, 5, or 7, it doesn't concern us. It doesn't make any difference to our hidayat, the lessons, the hidayat that we can gain from this surah. So it's not befitting for a person who wishes to attain ihsan and excellence in their deen to engage in such unnecessary, trivial debates. To leave the futile, to leave the unnecessary, this is one of the teachings of tazkiyah as well. And this is not just limited to unnecessary questioning, unnecessary everything. Leave the futile gaze. Things that you're not supposed to look at, leave them. There's some billboard. We don't need to look at every single billboard that we pass by on the way. Leave the futile gazes, futile speech as well. The Prophet ﷺ said that speak good, else remain silent. Leave futile thoughts, leave unnecessary thoughts. So leaving the futile, this is a very important teaching in our deen, and it's the way through which a person attains excellence and ihsan. قُلْ رَبِّي أَعْلَمُ بِإِدَّتِهِمْ مَا يَعْلَمُهُمْ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. That only a few people, مَا يَعْلَمُهُمْ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. Not only a few people know it. Only a few people know their actual number. Now again, different views are there. But Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala narrates that the stronger position here is that the last one is the more proper, the more correct. That there were 7 in number, and the 8th was the dog. Others say that nobody knows what their actual number was. This word tum. And then after the last advice here, فَلَا تُمَارِ فِيهِمْ إِلَّا مِرَاءً ظَاهِرًا. This is another important line. Allah Ta'ala is telling the Prophet ﷺ that you should not debate with these mushrikeen, with these Jews, with these Christians who have sent these people to you to ask you these questions. Do not argue. Tumari means to argue. It means to argue about something, the conclusion of which is hard to accept. Allahu Akbar. Look at the choice of words. To argue about something, the conclusion of which is hard to accept. You're debating with someone, or you were, just having a dialogue with someone. You know that the conclusion that you want to establish is hard for the other person to accept. So Allah Ta'ala says that فَلَا تُمَارِ فِيهِمْ. فَلَا تُمَارِ فِيهِمْ. Telling the Prophet ﷺ that you should not debate with these mushrikeen, whom the Jews and Christians have sent to you. Do not argue or debate about the number, except illa mira'an zahira, except the only thing you should do is a clear discussion, a clear argument. And you don't be excessive in debating, rather just in a very simple manner, outward manner, you present your case. You present what is haqq, what you think is the truth. But in the manner that you present the haqq, don't fight. Don't create a hostile environment. Don't create a hostile, don't have a hostile tone. And unnecessarily, don't try to instigate the other person, try to provoke the other person, or say something which you know will cause the other person to react even in a more aggressive manner. No, don't engage in those tactics. Rather, debate, argue, mira an zahira, where you just state what the haq is and leave it to there. Leave it to there. You tell what you think is right in a peaceful, mature, polite manner. And then if the other person accepts, well and good. If they don't accept, then you did what you had to do. Like elsewhere, Allah Ta'ala mentions, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. That if they are adamant and insistent on the batil, on that which is false, they still want to continue debating, you don't engage them further. You did what you had to do. You presented your case for a haqq, and then now they're refusing to accept. You say qalu salama. You just say salam and you move on. Say something which is peaceful, and you don't engage further. You don't debate further. If this one teaching, this is one teaching that if we can apply to our conflict management, conflict resolution, where people have difference of opinion, debates, and disagreements, this would go a long way in resolving those conflicts. It's teaching us how to approach such situations. This is a feature of every person's life almost, where in some capacity or the other, whether office, whether at work, whether relatives, whether inheritance issues, whether job issues, whether other relationship problems, there, in some capacity or the other, person is faced with where you are on the haqq, you have the truth, the other person, you need to convince them, you need to have a conversation with them. So the manner in which you speak to the other person, there are three things that are really, really important. And Hazrat Mufti Muhammad Taqi Usmani Damat Barakatum, he, in one of his kitab, and he's also narrating it from some other very big scholar, There are three things that are really, really important in such a situation. That number one, what you speak is haqq. Your statement is haqq. It should not be a false, it should not be a lie. You are on the haqq. So you speak the haqq. The statement is true. Second, your niyat is haqq. That the intention, why you want to say that true statement, your intention also needs to be right. Say the right thing and say it with the right intention. Your intention should not be that I want to make the other person look down or inferior. I want to appear superior. I want to embarrass the other person. These are all bad intentions. The intentions should be simply that I want the haqq to become known. I want, for example, if someone's rights are being violated, I just want to redress the situation, to be able to give the rights of that person. I want to stop the oppression. For example, I want to stop the zulm. These are good intentions. So speak the right thing and speak it with the right intention, not because you just want to vent out your anger, not because you have misgivings about the other person and you want to use this as an opportunity to put down the other person. Even if you're justified in saying the right thing, your intention cannot be to hurt and harm the other person. It should always be a noble intention which is not personal revenge, a personal vendetta, something noble, something beyond personal enmity. You could be fighting for a case of justice, fighting for justice. That's a good intention. So something which is a noble cause. And the third thing he mentioned was, you say the right thing, say it with the right intention, and say it in the right manner. The tariqa, the lehja, the tone, the words that you choose, the expression, the manner of expression, the way of communicating, that also needs to be right. That also needs to be correct. It also needs to be haqq. And what is the correct manner of speaking? Speak politely. Like the best example of this we gave last time as well. Allah Ta'ala sent Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam and Sayyidina Harun alayhi salam to Fir'aun with this instruction that you give da'wah to Fir'aun, but also this advice that when you speak to Fir'aun, فَقُولَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا, speak to him softly. Speak the right thing, speak haqq, don't compromise. You don't need to dilute the haqq, but speak the right thing in the right manner, politely, gently. You don't want to hurt their heart, and as much as it's possible, you speak the right thing without hurting their heart, without hurting their feelings. And I know there will be situations when you speak the haqq, the other person's feelings will be attacked. You will encroach upon their feelings as well. You will hurt their feelings as well when you speak haqq. But even in that situation, when you speak the haqq, choose a manner by which you can minimize hurting their feelings as much as possible. Minimize hurting their feelings as much as possible. This is the way, this is the manner to speak. Speak gently. We see Fir'aun giving da'wah to Fir'aun, but speaks softly. Don't say something to instigate. Gentleness, softness, kindness. So, three things to remember: that speak the right thing, speak with the right intention, and speak in the right manner, the tone, the way of expression, which should be polite. And our mashayikh and ulama have said that if someone can combine all these three things together, then surely the outcome will always be productive and beneficial. In one way or the other, there will be a productive outcome if we can combine these three elements. It will pave the way for bettering the relationship, for improving the relationship. The net outcome will always be positive if we can combine these three things. But on the other hand, and this is the mistake that many of us we make, is that if we lose out on any one of these elements, and normally the way this happens is that you say, I'm speaking the haqq, and your intention is also right. I want to say it because I'm standing up for justice. But the manner in which you were speaking is not right. I'm fighting for my rights, but the manner in which you're fighting for your rights, that is not okay. And when one of these three is missing, that is what leads to fitna. It leads to fitna, a test, a trial, a tribulation. Instead of the situation improving, it will further worsen. Fitnas are created, whether these fitnas are in our offices, in our relationships, in our other aspects of our life. The fitnas are created when we lose out on one of these elements. So really, and sometimes it's the intention. The manner is, we're speaking in a polite manner. What we're saying is also right. But the intention, there's no ikhlas. We have ulterior hidden motives. We're doing to hurt the other person, to take revenge. Not khair khwai, not thinking about the well-being of the other person. Adeen nasiha. Deen is that you think about the well-being of the other person. If they have done zulm, you stop them. Thinking about their well-being. That hamdardi, that softness, that love, that compassion you need to have for them. So this is one teaching to remember, and it's, I think, a very important teaching, that we try to speak the right thing with the right intention, with the right manner. And inshallah, we'll see the barakah of that. So that is what we learn from this ayat. فَلَا تُمَارِ فِيهِمْ إِلَّا mira and zahira, that do not argue, debate with them except in a clear discussion, a clear argument. So you lay down your case, that this is what my position is. You lay down the arguments to prove your position, that these are my proofs for the position that I have. And you ask the other person to reconsider their position in light of what you have said. You politely make your case and then you leave it. And especially those who are religious and those who are, if you go one step ahead, scholars, ulama, it doesn't befit them that they engage into such polemical discussions and debates. Their maqam, their rank is above that, to engage in these petty, trivial things. They can just lay down what the Islamic position, the haqq position is. And yes, lay it down convincingly. Back it up with full evidence. But then, right, you lay it down, let the other person decide. You can't, force it down their throat. La ikraha fid din. You can't compel them to agree with you. If they've already decided they don't want to agree with you, they're adamant, they're stubborn, and you can't do much about that. You leave it then. You don't just be after them and you try to, debate with them further. Mira and Zahira, do it in one clear argument. And if it doesn't work, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. If they want to engage you further, just say salam. Don't. So the essence of this ayat is that avoid a fight. Avoid a hostile environment. Avoid a jhagda. This ferocious fights and debates that happen. Avoid that. And this is something which is highly meritorious in our deen, to avoid such kinds of fights. In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, Man tarakal kadhiba wa huwa batilun, that whoever leaves a lie which was wrong, then bunya lahu fi rabadil jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make for that person a house at the edge of Jannah. So you leave a lie, you leave something that was false, for the sake of Allah, Allah will give you a house at the edge of Jannat. وَمَنْ تَرَكَ الْمِرَاءَ وَهُوَ مُحِقٌّ, and whoever leaves a debate, this kind of mira'a, the same word is used. Whoever leaves a fight, a debate, an argument, this hostile argumentation, even though he was on the haqq, he was on the truth, he was justified, bunya lahu fi wasatiha, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make for that person a house in the middle of Jannah. Allahu Akbar. You leave this hostile argumentation, and Allah Ta'ala promises for you a house in the middle of Jannat. Look at the fazilat of avoiding these kinds of fights and argumentations. House in the middle of Jannat. And there is a flip side, another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that those who engage in these argumentations and fights and disputes, then this will shave them. Halaqa, haliqa. This will shave them. And the Sahaba asked that, what will this shave? And the Prophet ﷺ said, this will shave your deen. I'm not saying this will shave the hair. This will shave your very deen. It shaves away a person's good deeds. Halak, go for Umrah, halak. That's what happens to the good deeds. The deen is shaved away when you engage in such argumentations. So it doesn't befit a person wanting to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to engage in such argumentations. Imam Ghazali rahmatullah in his Ihya, in his Ayyuhal Walad, letter to a disciple, which is his masterpiece, spiritual will or spiritual autobiography, a spiritual testament, nasiha that he gave to one of his students. One of the advices he mentions there is that, oh son, oh my beloved son, do not engage in such hostile disputes and argumentations if you wish to draw close to Allah Ta'ala. For these things will become a veil and obstacle on your heart and will prevent you from feeling the sweetness of Iman in your heart. Your heart will become hardened and darkened and blackened by these debates, because what ends up happening inevitably in such debates is that it's no longer about the haqq and the truth. It's then one nafs trying to overpower the other nafs. It's nafsa nafsi. One ego trying to subdue the other ego. It's a fight between egos. And when you have a fight between egos, then this is something which becomes a veil in your relationship with Allah Ta'ala. You're no longer Abdullah, you become Abdul Nafs, the servant of your nafs. So refrain from giving in to this desire of your nafs and having such hostile argumentations and debates. So for a seeker on the path, for a salik, someone wanting to draw close to Allah Ta'ala, this is a fundamental requirement of this path, that you avoid any such discussions, debates, hostile argumentations. It doesn't mean that you need to back down on the haqq. You say what the haqq is, but with those things that I mentioned. Say the haqq with the haqq intention, the haqq manner, and if the other person accepts, well and good. Otherwise, you did what you had to do. You leave that jhagda, you leave that debate. Buni Allahu fi wasatiha. You think about this hadith that you will get a house in Jannah, in the middle of Jannah. And just to complete the hadith, وَمَنْ حَسَّنَ خُلُقَهُ, that person who has good akhlaq, good character, بُنِيَ اللَّهُ فِي أَعْلَاهَا, Allah Ta'ala will make a house for that person in the highest level of Jannah. So 3 levels of Jannah. You leave the falsehood, the falsity, the batil, you get a house in the side of Jannah, the corner of Jannah. You leave debates and argumentations, even if you're justified, get a house in the middle of Jannah. And if you have good akhlaq, Allah gives you a house in the highest echelons of Jannah. And then the last ayat, وَلَا تَسْتَفْتِ فِيهِمْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا, that don't even ask any single person about these Ashab-e Kahf. One is that don't debate among yourself except Mira and Zahira. And then second, that don't even ask other. Don't take fatwas from other. Don't even take fatwa from ahada, any single person about these Ashab-e Kahf. So here is another ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not resolve the matter. Some incidental detail about Ashab-e Kahf, this story, the detail is not answered here. Allah does not resolve the matter. And the reason why it's not resolved is because it doesn't really make a difference to the hidayah that we're getting from the story, whether there were 5 of them or 7 of them. So this is a general message that is given, that we should not delve into a debate or argumentation about matters which are not core and central to hidayat, except a very basic way where you present your case. You have a tentative discussion, present your case. Don't go further than that. There's a broader lesson for us. This is a broader lesson for us, that those aspects, even in the Quran, that are not necessarily do not have a direct bearing or direct relevance on your hidayat, you should not have any lengthy discussions about it. Have a preliminary, tentative, initial discussion, maybe disagreement over that, but that's it. Don't go any further into that issue. In one hadith of Barka, there is a fascinating story that is mentioned, that once Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, he brought a piece of Torah to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some pages from the Torah, and he asked that, Ya Rasulullah, hazihi nuskhatum minat Tawrat, that these are some pages from the Torah. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was silent. And then Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, he started reciting from those pages of the Torah. وَوَجْهُ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ يَتَغَيَّرُ. And the blessed face of the Prophet ﷺ changed color. And the Prophet ﷺ became upset, angry. The color changed. And upon seeing this, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, he said that ثَكِلَتْكَ ثَوَاكِلُ مَا تَرَى مَا بِوَجْهِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ. This is a phrase in Arabic language. That Umar, are you okay? What are you doing? Aren't you looking at the way the blessed face of the Prophet system is changing its color? What's wrong with you? Stop. And Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, when he looked at the blessed face of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he looked at the expression of anger, he immediately said, A'udhu billah, A'udhu billahi min ghazabillah wa ghazabi rasulihi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That I seek refuge in Allah from the ghazab, the anger of Allah, and from the anger of His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Radina billah. Radina billahi rabba. We are radhi with Allah as our Rabb. Wa bil islami dina. And we are razi with Islam as our deen. Wa bi Muhammadin nabiyya. And we are razi, we are pleased with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as our Nabi. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Walladhi nafsu Muhammadin biyadihi, that I swear by that being in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Law bada lakum Musa fattaba'tumuhu, that if Musa alayhi salam was to come and make himself present among you, then he would have no choice but to do ittiba of me. You would have no choice but to follow me. And وَتَرَكْتُمُونِي لَذَلَلْتُمْ عَنْ سَوَاءِ السَّبِيلِ. And if he left me, if Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam were to leave following my sunnah, then the natija, the result would be that he would be led astray from the right path. He would deviate from the correct path. وَلَوْ كَانَ حَيًّا.